Hi everyone, so I'm Caitlin Cornwall and I'm head of year 8 and a teacher of history at St James. So actually, unlike Chloe and Ali, I don't actually have kind of like natural links into this kind of work. I stumbled into being involved in this through the fact that I was actually head of year 11 last year, and then I've come back to being head of year 8 this year. And in two ways I've kind of fallen into it. The first way was that I actually relocated to Exeter and was now able to kind of look at the possibilities of myself riding to work. So I applied for the Bike to Work scheme. And in doing that, I then also kind of started getting to know some of my year 8 parents. And I had a lot of inquiries into the fact that my group had obviously been in year 7 last year. That's normally when they would have been involved in Bikeability. That's usually who we kind of sell it to. And actually they had not been able to do it because of COVID. So I had some inquiries from parents who had been interested already and really wanted their children to then have that opportunity this year, despite the fact that they were no longer in year 7. And I also had inquiries from parents who were quite conscious of the fact that perhaps travelling on public transport was not as safe as what they'd previously found it, due to obviously the COVID situation. So I had lots of kind of questions and I unfortunately didn't know the answers. So I kind of found myself asking around as to who was responsible for Bikeability at our school, and it was clear that it was led by our PE department, but there was no one in particular who was kind of leading on it. And I somehow ended up leading on it, which I think was a great way of kind of pressurizing me into making sure that I will ride to school. But it's also been quite nice in relation to getting to know my year group, as obviously I've known my year 11s all the way through, and now I've got this new year group who, unless I've taught them history, actually a lot of them didn't really know me. So that's been a really nice way of kind of getting to know them. So what we've been looking at is kind of how we would promote Bikeability, but not only to our year 7s anymore, but to the entire school, and how we could look at how we would do that with Key Stage 3. Looking at kind of our year 7 and 8 and doing that during the school day. So that's what normally happens. But also then looking at how we could offer this to our Key Stage 4 group, and how we could actually offer that during the holidays. So one in particular is the fact that we have a few extra days now in our half term that we previously hadn't had, and that we can now offer that as an opportunity without removing those students from classes. So I wasn't sure what interest we would get. I realised very quickly that I wished I hadn't put my email address as the person to respond to, as I was absolutely inundated. And we've so far, given the fact that I advertised this last week, I've so far had over 60 sign-ups, which I think is absolutely fantastic. I'm really excited about it, but I'm also very aware that it's a lot of pressure. Some of the things that have been really nice is that we've had huge interest from students who have missed the Bikeability options at primary school and didn't realise how they could do this. So we've been able to offer beginners, for students who've never cycled. We've been able to offer it up to students who have cycled previously but been ill when they've done their levels, and they want to do level 2 and then do level 3 as well. And we've offered it up to students that have done both level 1 and 2 and want to do level 3. The map that you can see here that Paul has been responsible for helping to create, and that hopefully we'll be able to kind of show you together, shows us, this is something that we want to share with our students, and this kind of shows us exactly who is cycling to school and who has options to do so. So Paul, I don't know if you can kind of show us, if you can kind of highlight some of the areas for us. So yeah, so we can see, I've just got to move my little thing that says about muting myself. So yeah, we can highlight certain areas. So the percentage of pupils that we know to be using, that know to be cycling.
Okay, that's the proportion that live within that cyclable, or so walking distance of 10 minutes. The next stage for this is to then overlay with those who are actually commuting, travelling on foot or by cycling. Is it worth me saying a couple of words about the map while we're here?
Yeah, please do.
So we built this. So I head up the evaluation for the Live and Move pilot, which Liz mentioned up front, and we've also worked with Charlotte and a number of the other organisations. It's really early days for us. So two of the people on this call, Dominic Caton and Jill Brookman, in the second week of their roles. We're working with 11 of the schools within Exeter, and also with Liz and Devon County Council on the active travel front to promote physical activity, to promote active travel. The reason we devised the maps was working with St James in the first instance, who've been absolutely amazing, is to try and help visualize the proportion of pupils who could be realistically be active traveling. That's not to say there's no actual targets to say beyond kind of 20 minutes, 30 minutes that we wouldn't want them to active travel. Of course we would, but actually it's seeing, well, where does the school population live? And Exeter being a hilly city, how can we map and how can we do it in a way to protect anonymity, to show in real travel time the proportions that live within those distances? Because traditionally we map and we say, well, if they're within a couple of miles, well, they could active travel. Actually, that's kind of meaningless. If you live on a particularly difficult route, whilst as the crow flies, you might be within a certain number of miles. The actual practicality of it is that your route could be either much shorter, much longer, depending. So we used a route into Google Maps using hexagon values to represent a postcode. So you can't tell a particular pupil, but this shows the pupil population for St James. And we mapped it walking to and walking from school. Again, you see here, if we look at this yellow zone, which is 10 minutes by foot, it changes. Well, that's because Exeter is a very hilly city. It's not a given that just because one route is a certain length of time, it's going to be the same the way back. We want people to be able to make informed decisions. We want head teachers. We want Caitlin to be able to look at this and go, wow, here's where my population lives. Here's where pupils live. And here's the challenge for us as a school. Here's what we can be doing. We also mapped on the cycle lanes, working with Liz, and this is still a work in progress. The whole thing we're looking to develop, and as Caitlin said, to actually sit down with head teachers, sit down with pupils and say, well, here's the challenge we face. Here's where our population lives. Is active travel an option for you? Is it something that could be considered? And I know I'm massively over time, so I'm rushing through, but I wanted to show you the Zoom function.
You've had 3 thumbs up, Paul. You've had 3 thumbs up.
Oh, sorry, I can't see. Right, I will finish off just by saying it allows Caitlin to sit down with the pupils to really get granular and say, okay, well, you're within this hexagon. Actually, we can now work out and we can map the possible routes in. And it gives power and information. And us as a pilot, it helps us understand where are we now. And after we've been working with the schools, working with Caitlin, where will we be? Where are we in the future? And we will work with parents and unfortunately surveys, no one's a fan of surveys, but to understand what those proportions are. And I will shut up now. Sorry, Kerry.
You're absolutely fine, Paul. I think it was it's really good to hear the mapping work that's happening. I think there was a question about whether this map will be rolled out for all secondary schools, but I'm presuming that's probably a future project and future work. Maybe you just want a quick answer on that, Paul, before we go to breakout sessions.
Yeah, so the short answer is yes, but first off will be our pilot school, so our first wave, because we don't want to spread ourselves too thin. We want to really make change and then create a blueprint for that we can work with other schools, so that it will be the 11 first, and then in time this will build.